Catherine will speak on my behalf. Mrs. Meghan Markle has repeatedly written to the palace seeking our intervention in the Epstein matter, but, like Andrew, she must face her own consequences.
According to high-ranking royal insiders and seasoned palace reporters, King Charles III has flatly refused to take a direct high-tension phone call initiated by Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. The monarch did not just refuse to hear the Duchess out, he went a step further, formally handing the complete management of the Sussex file over to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. A major breakthrough in this silent standoff came to light when aides noted down a strict, uncompromising directive issued by the king from his private study. Sources say the king made his position crystal clear to his senior communications team and private secretaries, stating the king will not engage in this discussion. From now on, Catherine will speak on my behalf. Meghan Markle has written repeatedly seeking our help, but just like Andrew, she is going to have to bear these consequences herself. By deliberately invoking the name of Prince Andrew, who was stripped of all public duties and status over the Epstein scandal, King Charles III drew a brutal, unmistakable parallel. The message was clear. The palace now views those constant demands from Montecito not as family communication, but as an institutional headache that has to be contained, managed, and completely neutralized without the king ever getting personally involved. Over in California, Meghan Markle had been proactively flooding the king's private office with dozens of personal letters and legal briefs. Far from offering any family reconciliation or polite apologies, these papers read like a complex, heavy list of demands, with Meghan Markle insisting on a direct private phone call with King Charles III. She wanted a personal verbal guarantee from the king himself regarding tight, comprehensive royal security arrangements, top-tier official lodging on the London royal estate, and formal public recognition of her family's status before she would let her two children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, touch down at Heathrow Airport. Meghan was banking heavily on the raw power of the media and the emotional pull of the king's grandchildren to force London's hand. Yet, as her self-imposed deadline came and went, the response from Buckingham Palace was not a constructive talk, but a heavy, chilling silence. The royal switchboard was not falling apart in administrative chaos. Instead, senior courtiers made a calculated collective decision to simply ignore the ringing phone. By refusing the calls and redirecting every single piece of Meghan's mail directly to the Princess of Wales, King Charles III has executed the ultimate institutional demotion. Inside the stiff and unforgiving hierarchy of the British court, having a direct line to the sovereign is the absolute currency of power. By forcing the Duchess to run all future requests through the exact sister-in-law she openly bashed on global television, the king has effectively stripped Meghan of her peer-to-peer standing with the core royal family. She has been quietly booted from the top-tier royal loop and rerouted to an administrative branch managed entirely by the future queen. This heavy administrative wall has been built even higher by Prince William, especially given the controversial, highly public, non-official visit scheduled for this coming July, where the Sussexes plan to land in the United Kingdom to kick off the big countdown for the upcoming Birmingham Invictus Games. Prince William has completely handed over all security and operational issues concerning Meghan to the specialised staff of his own private office. Insiders claim the future king is moving with cold, absolute administrative finality, putting up a thick bureaucratic shield to protect his immediate family from what Kensington Palace sees as a highly toxic media campaign. The time for cosy family chats is officially over. The palace has shifted into a posture of total institutional self-defence, making absolutely sure that every single move from the Sussexes is met not with parental emotion, but with the cold, unyielding machinery of the crown. That calculated silence from Buckingham Palace did not just mean they were refusing to talk to her. It completely blew apart the complex leverage that the Sussex camp had spent months trying to build up. To really understand how serious it is that the king sent all her letters to the Princess of Wales, You have to look at the incredibly specific, non-negotiable list of demands Meghan Markle sent over through lawyers and diplomats before her trip. Royal experts and media watchers following the drama closely point out this was never about a quiet private family reunion. Instead, those documents sent to London were a direct challenge demanding the kind of royal treatment that would put the Sussexes right back into the inner circle without them doing any actual royal work. Right at the top of this secret ultimatum was an incredibly bold demand regarding their royal living quarters. The Duchess of Sussex explicitly demanded that her family be set up in apartment 1A inside Kensington Palace. This particular home carries massive symbolic weight inside the family, since it serves as the grand permanent residence of Prince William and Catherine. By pushing to move into this specific home, the Sussex camp was not just looking for a safe, secure spot to sleep. They were trying to plant themselves right inside the physical and symbolic heart of the active working royal family. On top of that, the letters laid out a wild list of highly personal demands that royal staff would have to set up before they arrived. These strict conditions stated the whole home had to be cleaned using only chemical-free products, and the kitchen setup had to be completely replaced with specialised cooking gear, hand-picked from a list written by the Duchess herself. Beyond the physical house, she also demanded a complete and total overhaul of their daily logistical support. The Duchess demanded a top-tier royal staff right away, including the hiring of 2 full-time nannies trained exclusively at the famous and highly prestigious Norland College. That school is famous around the world for training the elite, high-end caretakers hired by senior royals, most notably the Prince and Princess of Wales for their own 3 children. The attempt to copy them was obvious. Alongside elite childcare, the Sussex demands called for a dedicated high-end private chef, a certified yoga instructor and a personal stylist hired solely to handle the outfits and public appearances of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet during their time in Britain. This was definitely not a request for simple temporary hospitality. Instead, they insisted on a fully functional taxpayer-funded royal household, one built to match the massive scale of the actual heir to the throne. But the real breaking point in this secret plan was the massive financial and legal setup behind their personal security. In page after page of letters sent to the palace, the Duchess was completely unyielding, insisting that the entire bill for this operation had to be covered by British taxpayers and private royal estate funds. We are talking about the wild costs of elite staffing and home renovations, plus a heavy, highly coordinated tactical security team tracking their every move. Legal teams for the Sussexes argued that these elite services were a fundamental, non-negotiable birthright for top-tier royals, no matter if they had walked away from royal duties or were living thousands of miles away from the United Kingdom. By treating these massive demands as a birthright instead of a favour to ask for, those letters from California completely ignored royal protocol. They handed the British monarchy a direct ultimatum, trying to force them to bankroll a completely separate competing court on their own dime. The sheer size of these financial and security demands turned what should have been a quiet family reunion into a major constitutional crisis. Buckingham Palace was essentially being cornered into funding and recognising a glamorous royal lifestyle for 2 people who had explicitly abandoned their official duties. When these blunt demands arrived on the desks of top palace aides and King Charles himself, they did not see them as a starting point for talks. Instead, they saw a calculated play to set a dangerous precedent, one that would completely wreck the slimmed-down, budget-conscious monarchy King Charles III wanted to build. The palace shut down the proposal, immediately triggering a massive tense standoff between the 2 sides as their high-stakes July deadline drew closer. Once those secret talks fell apart completely, the Sussex team immediately shifted their playbook to a much more aggressive strategy, dragging the quiet legal battle out of the shadows and into an open public war. Realising that Buckingham Palace would not bow to their strict timeline or hand over the security they wanted, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex simply went around the official channels. They decided to completely blindside the palace by going public with a firm date for their return to the United Kingdom. This high-stakes trip, set to happen in July, was built entirely around the massive countdown events for the Birmingham Invictus Games. But the sudden announcement immediately set off a huge firestorm in the British media as people realised this trip was entirely unofficial, planned without any coordination consent or a real invite from the king himself. This surprise return is structured around two highly provocative goals designed to pressure the royal family. The first big move is a deeply calculated, emotional decision to bring Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet back to British soil for the first time in 4 years since the late Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee back in 2022. This is a bold, undeniable statement about their place and their royal bloodline. The Sussexes want to personally show their young kids where their family history began, making sure they know their deep connection to the British crown, even with the palace freezing them out. And by putting the young grandchildren right in front of the British public, they are creating a powerful emotional image that the core royal family cannot easily sweep aside or control. But the second, much more explosive goal of this surprise July trip is a clever media trap designed around their fierce battle over security. For years, the Duke and Duchess have fought bitter legal wars against the British Home Office and the high-level committee that decides who gets royal protection officers, repeatedly claiming that the United Kingdom is way too dangerous for their family to visit without armed, state-funded security guards. They even swore they would never bring their young kids to British soil under these restricted security conditions. So, this sudden choice to make the trip anyway without winning any security funding or legal guarantees is seen by top royal experts as a highly calculated trap to back the king into a corner. The plan relies completely on public pressure and intense media focus. By planning this unofficial trip with their small children, while letting the world know they do not have official security, the Sussexes are shifting all safety risks directly onto the government and the king. Their calculated bet is simple: if even a tiny security scare or minor incident happens while they are in Birmingham or London, the global press will immediately blame King Charles. Headlines would immediately accuse the King and Prince William of abandoning their own family over bureaucratic stubbornness and petty rules. This puts massive psychological pressure on the palace, because they have to watch a high-profile visit they never approved, knowing their entire reputation is on the line. By turning a simple sports countdown into a high-stakes battle over royal bloodlines and taxpayer security, the Sussexes have weaponized this trip to exert maximum public pressure. They have successfully moved the war out of quiet palace offices and directly into the streets of Birmingham and busy London airport terminals. This aggressive power play wipes away any hope of family warmth or making peace, trading it for a cold, calculated game of media chess. With July rapidly approaching, this public announcement is a direct challenge to the king's authority, forcing the palace to brace for a highly weaponized arrival designed to force concessions they could never win in secret. Buckingham Palace did not just shut the door on this public challenge out of spite. They did it because of a deep bleeding wound from a past clash that still haunts them. Secret court files and leaked testimonies from senior courtiers reveal a dark truth. The total collapse of trust inside the royal family actually started with a brutal behind-closed-doors screaming match at a private Windsor remembrance reception. It was supposed to be a quiet, sacred moment for the family to mourn away from the cameras, but instead it turned into the night the monarchy cracked in half. Right there, the Duchess of Sussex realised she had been deliberately locked out of the official family appearance on the balcony. That single public photo op was supposed to show the world exactly who still mattered in the modern royal core. In the heavily coded world of the British court, where you stand on that famous balcony, is never just a random spot. It is the ultimate visual proof that you actually belong and hold real power. When the Duchess saw her absence was a calculated, united move by the royal hierarchy, she took it as an unforgivable, highly public insult. The second the formal ceremony wrapped up, she marched straight to the private quarters of Windsor and cornered senior palace aides in a fury. Eyewitness logs kept in secret files show the conversation exploded into shouting almost instantly. One official turned pale, shaken, absolutely terrified by her raw, explosive fury. In the middle of this screaming match, the Duchess snapped, warning them directly that the palace could not just wipe her out and expect her to stay quiet. To the listening aides, this was no desperate plea from a hurting woman. They heard it as a cold, open threat, designed to tear down the stability of the entire crown. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, stood right there watching this entire ugly breakdown of royal decorum unfold. For the future king, who had spent years dodging press attacks and family drama, this explosive fight crossed a line he could never forgive. Launching this aggressive challenge during a sacred weekend of national mourning made everything so much worse. This was a time for quiet respect, proving to the heir that the Sussex camp cared far more about PR and self-image than any sacred duty to the country. William did not see a sister-in-law standing up for herself. He saw a wild, unpredictable liability who could leak private secrets and ruin their safety at any moment. King Charles III watched the ugly scene unfold from across the stateroom, and onlookers say his face hardened with a cold, absolute finality. The king had genuinely hoped that mourning together might ease the bitter family feud and open a quiet door towards some kind of fragile peace. Instead, he watched raw, bitter resentment ruin the one evening meant to show a united front. A top palace aide typed up every single detail of the blowout fight, locking the highly sensitive report away in a secret file, meant only for the king and his heir. The report did not hold back, it captured every harsh word and the sheer toxic anger of that night. It preserved the raw, chilling threat on paper for future use. From that dark night on, the main question occupying the minds of the king and Prince William was no longer about family healing or finding paths to a royal return. Trust was completely dead. From now on, it was about national security. Her warning about not staying quiet followed the Sussex file through every review, landing right on the king's desk when their demanding new letters arrived from California this July. The dark memory of that Windsor fight completely stripped her new demands of any warmth, turning the Duchess's letters into a clear, aggressive threat to bully the crown. Giving in out of the question. Any tiny concession would just be treated as a weakness they could exploit in their brutal, ongoing media war, meaning the heavy doors of the monarchy would stay locked tight for their own protection. So, when the July visit approached, the royal response was executed with the precision of a cold, defensive military operation, completely devoid of any fatherly love or emotional second thoughts. After comparing the secret files of the Windsor fight with the aggressive demands sent over from California, King Charles III and Prince William called an ultra-private meeting to plan their final move. In that locked room, the king signed a strict order that completely stripped the Sussex camp of any power they had left. By declaring the king would not speak to them and instead handing the entire Sussex file over to the Princess of Wales, the sovereign cleverly protected the crown from another toxic emotional family trap, building a cold bureaucratic wall that turned a messy family feud into a formal matter of state policy. This massive shift of power inside the palace walls was entirely guided by Prince William's clever, calculated strategy. The Prince of Wales acted with absolute cold finality, instructing his private office to intercept all incoming communications about the unofficial July trip and route them straight through the specialised administrative channels of the Princess of Wales. This move was a calculated, brutal public demotion, forcing the Duchess of Sussex to take her complaints to the exact woman she had consistently targeted in ruthless global media campaigns. This brilliant move left Harry and Meghan completely cornered with nowhere left to turn. If they agreed to talk, they had to accept the Princess of Wales's total authority over their fate. But if they refused, they faced complete exile forever. As this cold iron curtain fell inside the palace, the royal PR machine quietly braced itself for the massive drama ahead at the upcoming Birmingham Invictus Games. Palace spin doctors and private secretaries quietly drew up a series of sharp, highly calculated public statements designed to totally block and neutralise any media trap set by the Sussex supporters. The core strategy of the palace was built around weaponising total absolute silence. Royal aides had strict orders to completely ignore any public fuss about security risks facing Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, refusing to let the king get dragged into a messy fight over taxpayer-funded bodyguards. The official stance of the monarchy remained totally unyielding, making it very clear that since this trip was completely unofficial and lacked a royal invite, safety was entirely up to the private citizens themselves. This firm refusal to bend sparked a wave of panic inside the quiet offices of the Sussex team in Montecito. Once they realised the king had cut off all direct phone calls and left their fate to the Princess of Wales, their best weapon playing on a father's guilt was completely gone. The strict deadline that Meghan Markle had set right next to her secure phones ran out without a single call from London, showing that the royal family no longer saw her massive worldwide media presence as a real threat to the crown. Instead, the palace proved it had the iron discipline to let that silence do the talking, leaving the public to watch an unofficial trip that enjoyed zero royal approval, zero hosting, and zero recognition. While outside travel agents sorted the final logistical details for their unofficial July trip, the deep rift between both sides finally hardened into something that felt incredibly permanent. Prince William had built an absolute impenetrable shield around his own wife and kids, making sure the arrival of the Sussexes would not disrupt the peace or public standing of Catherine and their children. Meanwhile, King Charles III, bearing the heavy load of a modern monarch, accepted the deep heartbreaking sorrow of shutting out his own younger son, knowing that the survival of the crown required a painful sacrifice of his own feelings. The palace had moved away from simple damage control and into a state of total institutional lockdown, ensuring that when the Sussexes finally stepped off the plane at Heathrow Airport, they would find no welcoming family, just the cold, unyielding reality of a locked, historic fortress. When the actual scheduled day of that July landing finally came, the quiet backroom bickering instantly transformed into a massive, highly visible national drama. As dawn broke over London, regular commuters heading through busy hubs like Victoria Station walked right into a sea of brutal front-page headlines across every single British newspaper. The narrative, which began as quiet private letters sent from California, had now escaped all control, leaving their PR team completely helpless. Major news channels and top reporters were not framing the arrival of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet as some happy family reunion, but rather as a highly controversial, totally unofficial gate-crashing done in direct defiance of the king. Yet the palace refused to issue any statement to soften the blow. They simply stepped back and let the fierce British media machine handle the dirty work of containment. The shock of this public exposure hit international newsrooms immediately. For the first time in 4 years, the public watched the total collapse of the royal family dynamic without any polite filters. By letting the news of the king refusing to take Meghan's phone calls completely dominate the news, the palace sent an incredibly clear message to the world. Giving the Princess of Wales absolute authority over all Sussex matters was quickly labelled by top analysts as a brilliant, masterly move to show who was truly in charge. This completely took away their favourite weapon, which was pretending there was some kind of ongoing equal battle between two matching sides. Instead, it positioned the Princess of Wales as the absolute guardian of the crown, while the Duchess of Sussex was cast as an outsider begging for entry to a tightly locked estate. As the hours ticked down toward the landing of that unofficial flight, the clever mind game about the kids' safety began to backfire on them. The Sussexes had clearly assumed that by bringing young royal children to a country they called too dangerous, massive public pressure would force King Charles to step in and grant them official police protection. But the public did not play along with their script. That total silence from Buckingham Palace, combined with the firm stance of the Prince of Wales, started a very different conversation among ordinary people. Regular folks on the street began asking why two parents would willingly bring their little kids into a place they called so dangerous without sorting out their own security issues beforehand. The blame for using the grandchildren as leverage shifted entirely from the king to the parents themselves, totally ruining the media trap meant to embarrass the monarch. Outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, small groups of locals and tourists gathered by the railings, talking about this historic standoff. The mood on the street mirrored the tough stance of the palace, with many agreeing that the days of making soft royal compromises were completely over. Seeing the Sussexes on British soil without any royal apartments at Kensington Palace, cut off from those elite Norland nannies and forced to pay for their own private bodyguards, proved the quiet, painful truth of their total, absolute royal exile. They wanted to show their children their royal heritage, but that empty tarmac and the complete lack of any welcoming party proved that having royal blood means absolutely nothing if you do not respect the rules of the crown. The final legacy of this July battle will be measured by a permanent shift in the balance of power within the monarchy. Prince William has successfully stepped up as the main protector of the family, showing the kind of tough, forward-thinking leadership that will define his own future reign. King Charles III, by choosing the ultimate stability of the crown over his own personal feelings as a father, has set a strict new standard of institutional discipline that completely shields the modern crown from outside media games. That heavy door locked by official policy is staying shut, and while the Sussexes go about their unofficial visit, met only by silence in the palace hallways, the whole world is finally hearing the sound of an ancient institution choosing its own survival and historic duty over endless family drama. The fallout from this tense July visit has pushed the British royal family into a completely new era of drawing lines and managing the press. While the Duke and Duchess of Sussex face the cold reality of this unofficial trip, the permanent long-term effects of King Charles III's strict rules are becoming incredibly clear. This is no longer just a brief temporary break between estranged family members. It is the official creation of a rigid two-tier system, one where anyone working outside the core royal family is left with absolutely no institutional power or leverage. By handing the future control of this entire messy situation over to the office of the Princess of Wales, the King has set a precedent that completely shifts the power dynamic of the royal family for decades to come. The instant result of this big shift is the complete neutralization of what reporters have always called the Montecito media machine. For years, the media strategy coming out of California relied heavily on the element of surprise, using massive global television interviews, tell-all books, and highly calculated online drops to force Buckingham Palace to constantly defend itself. But now, by turning the palace defence into a quiet, cold process run by the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Crown has successfully choked off the emotional drama that fueled those massive public campaigns. Any new legal threats, public demands, or desperate emotional pleas from the Sussex team will never land on the King's desk. They will simply be swallowed up by the highly disciplined, quiet administrative team over at the future Queen's office. Completely protecting the monarch like this is a massive deal as King Charles III shapes his modern reign around spending less and cutting down on royal waste. The public has watched the monarch face huge personal and family crises while staying absolutely dedicated to his duty to the state. By refusing to give in to Sussex demands for free luxury apartments in Kensington Palace, taxpayer-funded elite Norland nannies, and top-tier security, the King is keeping the Crown in line with what regular British taxpayers expect. The clear message is that royal perks must be earned through hard work and public service, and public money will never be spent on funding a rival secondary royal court that wants to run completely free from official duties. Meanwhile, this harsh freeze-out is causing major panic for the Sussex PR team as they desperately try to spin their current trip to the United Kingdom. The big promo events for the Birmingham Invictus Games, which they hoped would kickstart a massive global branding relaunch, have been completely drowned out by the absolute silence coming from London. Even the global media, which used to obsess over every detail of this family feud, is starting to sound cold and disconnected. Reporters are now looking at the brutal reality of their situation, pointing out that without official backing from the king, a royal title is just a meaningless label rather than a golden key to state power and protection. As this July visit winds down the real success of the palace, strategy is how beautifully boring and predictable it has all become. The Prince of Wales has shown that the modern monarchy is strong enough to survive immense media pressure without firing back or rolling in the mud. The institution is simply letting the Sussexes live with the exact reality they demanded when they quit their jobs as working royals. They are now treated just like any other famous private citizens, fully responsible for their own travel, their own expensive bodyguards, and their own public mistakes. The heavy door locked shut by strict royal policy is not budging an inch, making absolutely sure the pride, respect and future of the British Crown stay safe and protected inside the walls of their ancient constitutional fortress.